On my drive in today, because we're doing this podcast from the office, I stopped off at a Wawa, got an energy drink because I didn't sleep well last night, but I was like a little hungry. And you ever get like those little chicken bites under the heat lamp?
I never have.
I don't know if they're made with chicken. They taste good, but it's like a foam chicken inside. I didn't hate it, which says a lot about me, but I didn't hate it.
So we're not talking about gourmet dining here.
No, I mean, this is like peak gas station fare, but
yeah, I can't say I have. I have had chicken before.
Okay.
I'm terrified by Wawa parking lots. I don't know if we've had this conversation.
Man, I get it.
They opened a Wawa in my town actually in the last, I guess, 18 months or so. And I mean, unless you go between 2 and 4 in the morning, I mean, the parking lot is mob. People, like, the store isn't even that crowded, and they're very fast. I mean, they can, they get you in and out of there, but the parking lot's
terrifying. I try to park like far away at a Wawa. I don't want to be in the danger zone.
Yeah. And people just don't, I mean, because then you have the gas, the gas station part here, you have the parking lot in front, the parking lot in back. There's like usually 6 different entrances. So
you're like this. The Wawa closest to me is still an old school non-gas station. So I mean, it's not going to be there forever. So I'm enjoying the time I have with it.
I think the worst Wawa parking lot, I think if you're on the Schuylkill and you get off at Montgomery and go toward like Ballackinwood, there's a Wawa right on the right there, and there's like 6 parking spots.
That one on Delaware Ave is a mess.
Oh yeah, that's bad. Yeah, that's a. There's not many of those small ones left.
Mm-hmm. I like those.
Yeah, of course you do, because you're old school.
You don't like the old school ones?
I don't want to get into the whole Sheetz versus Wawa thing, but I will say that Sheetz parking lots are much more civilized.
Okay. You ever been to a Buc-ee's in Texas?
I don't think I have. Maybe just to get gas at 3 in the morning before that 5:30 DFW.
Well, they're not really like
flight.
in the cities. They're on like the freeways.
Okay. No, I don't think I've been to Buc-ee's.
You would know.
I feel like I have, though. That sounds familiar.
If you had been there, you would know. And people who have been there, they know what I'm talking about.
What's the other one in Texas? The K stores, right? That's all over Dallas.
Yeah,
K stores.
Yeah.
I had 95. You'd think leaving at like 11:30, you wouldn't hit traffic on 95. 2 roving PennDOT crews, both southbound. My GPS had me get off at Academy Road, and when I ended up going down State Street past Dagwood's, Dagwood's Pub. Back across under 95, down like Route 13, and then like across Aramingo and Frankfurt. And I mean, it took like 17 hours to get here.
If you can't tell, it's the off season. This is the Eagle Eye Podcast presented
Thanks
by
for
Nissan.
Joining us. We'll be back later this week.
I'm Dave Zangaro. We do have some stuff to talk about. The Eagles signed a new player, so we'll talk about him to start the show. We want to get into Hassan Reddick a little bit more after we talked about him on the last one. We have some stay or go coming in a little bit, but let's start with Julian Okwara. The Eagles signed him on Wednesday. Not a big splash acquisition, but a guy who's played in the league, a former 3rd-round pick, who has a chance to make this team.
He has a chance, especially at that position where I think there's so many unknowns and not a lot of, I guess, known quantities. And still a long shot, I think, but certainly an interesting guy who's played in the league. He's had sacks. He had a 5-sack season a couple of years ago. It's a typical Howie Roseman move. Now, when you make 10 of those type of moves and are all starting, that's not ideal. Like, that's what last year's defense was. But if you can find a guy that can help you who's on the street, and obviously he wasn't on a roster. I think he was on somebody's practice squad at the end of last year, and they didn't put him on there.
Well, he had been with the Lions like all year, and then in January, they released him to get a roster spot and put him on their practice squad.
But then they didn't put him on the future. They didn't give him a futures contract, so he was available. Yeah, why not? It's one of those moves that has no downside, not going to cost
kind of like
anything.
Terrell Lewis.
Yeah.
Same position.
Yeah.
Bring both of those guys in. I think one of them has a decent shot to make the team.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of question marks at that spot. And certainly if these guys shine in training camp, they'll have a legit shot.
Right. I know you haven't studied these guys, but either one of them you think has a little bit of an edge?
I don't think so. I can't really say. I mean, they're both similar. They've both played a little bit. they both were drafted.
I mean, same round of the same draft.
Same round of the same draft. Yeah, so they're both
Both
interesting
like
guys.
kind of haven't lived up to.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah.
So I think they're both in the same boat, and you got to look-see at them. They're not both going to make the team. I think one of them has a chance.
Mm-hmm.
It's certainly not a slam dunk, but they're both young guys, mid-20s, who need to kind of jumpstart their careers.
Okwara, his best year came in 2021. He had 5 sacks, 9 quarterback hits. The brother of Romeo Okwara, who still plays for the Lions, who kind of has had a similar career, has been like okay.
Yeah, it's like the Ellis brothers. One got released. But yeah, he played at Notre Dame.
It's weird that Noah's the one who's still here.
It's very weird, and was a mistake.
I still feel awful for that day in training camp when I unknowingly told Christian Ellis that his brother got waived injured.
Yeah, I guess it happened during practice.
It happened before practice.
We learned before practice.
And I assumed that he already knew. He did not, and that was a rough moment.
Yeah, and then I remember when Christian got waived, and I went up to you in the locker room and said, "Don't say anything to Noah."
It's fair. Okwara was a guy like he had some buzz, definitely coming out of Notre Dame. Kind of long, lanky edge rusher, really long arms. I looked this up: 34 3/8 inches. So big wingspan, 6'4". So he has like some tools that, at the time, it made sense to want to develop, and it hasn't really worked out that way.
Yeah, and the Eagles have a great tradition, great history with Notre Dame defensive lineman Trevor Laws, Victor Abiamiri, guys like that. So maybe he can follow in their footsteps.
Don't put that evil on him. That's mean. We'll see, but the position is intriguing because we'll talk about Hassan Reddick in a second, but that's obviously up in the air. Josh Sweat is entering the final year of his contract. They don't know what they have in Nolan Smith. Brandon Graham is a free agent or pending free agent. They don't have anything.
Yeah.
Patrick Johnson's still around. Teron Jackson's still around.
Yeah.
But it's a really important position that they put resources into. But right now, it's like you don't know what the future holds.
Yeah. Now, I mean, I think Nolan Smith has a better chance of helping this team next year than one of these guys. Mm-hmm. But you don't know. So. You don't know. And you're right. There's no sure things. I mean, Sweat's up at the end of the year. I think they'll have an easier time getting him done, Howie, than Reddick. I
was really disappointed. In locker cleanout day, I wanted to talk to Nolan Smith, and he turned me down for an interview. Fine, like that's his choice. I just really wanted to talk to him about his season, and because I thought it from the outside it was disappointing. I wonder how disappointed in it he was. Because the guy was a first-round pick.
Yeah.
And, I mean, he had to fight for playing time. He never really got much of it. Didn't really make an impact.
And he finally started getting some late and didn't make an impact. Mm-hmm. It's interesting to me, and I think this comes up a lot when we're looking at last year. There's so many guys that you look at their season and you're like, how much of their drop-off was them and how much was just coaching?
It's really tough to break it down like that.
Yeah, just the general malaise. I mean, like when everyone's struggling, it's hard to – I think that's what makes Fletcher's season so remarkable is that he maintained that level through everything going on. I also think it's easier for a veteran to do that.
He can kind of just tune it all out. He knows what to do.
He's been through everything. Some of the young guys, they've never been on losing teams. They've never lost 6 out of 7. They've never been through that. But you look at on both sides of the ball from, Reed Blankenship to Sweat to to Nolan, all these guys who struggled the second half of the year, AJ, I mean, there's a ton of them. Jalen, there's half the team declined. How much of it is the coaching? How much of it is this is a hopeless situation? Nothing's going right for us. Everything's going wrong. And how much is on the player? And it's so tricky. And I think that's going to make this offseason tricky for Howie because they're going to have to really figure out exactly why different guys declined.
You know what might have been the most notable thing about the Okwara signing? They listed him as an outside linebacker. That's a designation the Eagles haven't used in a long time.
Yeah.
They've called guys either defensive ends or linebackers. They haven't differentiated the off-ball backers and the outside backers. So they've been calling Hassan Reddick a linebacker, which it doesn't really matter. Everyone knows that he doesn't play that position, but I like the designation here.
That's interesting. Yeah. I wonder if that's the Vic Fangio roster.
I don't know. Maybe Vic Fangio guy was like, what the heck are we doing here?
I hope so.
I hope so. It's really silly to call Hassan Reddick a linebacker.
Yeah.
And it probably gives him a little PTSD.
You think?
Yeah. He's like, I'm not a linebacker. We tried that in Arizona.
Yeah,
it didn't go well.
One thing I know is StatHead needs to differentiate between edge rushers and linebackers.
Yeah, it's tricky though, because like it's what they're listed as.
Yeah.
And the more the league kind of goes to freeform play where you have like these guys who are
hybrids.
It's not really like the NBA where it's all positionless. Like there's still some more rigid guidelines here, but it's becoming it's pushing that a little bit. It makes it tougher.
Yeah, but it makes it more fun too.
Mm-hmm.
Just not to do stats.
Sure. And it's because like Marcus Smith shows up as a linebacker in Football Ref.
Yeah, you're right.
That's something that like only we know, but it annoys the heck out of us.
Big time.
Before we talk about Hassan Reddick, our producers are freaking out. I want to mention, Wawa, we love you. And if you want to throw some money into the podcast, like we'll eat the foam chicken all the time. Love the foam chicken. Didn't say I didn't like the foam chicken.
No, you did. You made it clear you enjoyed it.
I kind of liked it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just want to throw that out there.
Yeah.
So we'll take your money.
We will. They take ours.
They do. Hassan Reddick. So we recorded our last podcast on Tuesday. We talked about the situation, and nothing really changed for hearing from Hassan Reddick, but he did. He spoke with Jordan Schultz and Jordan Schultz.
Yeah,
Jordan Schultz, and then he tweeted himself, made it very clear that he did not request a trade, that he wants to be here in Philly. But a lot of this is like semantics driven, because what he really wants is a new contract, and that's the impetus of all this.
Yeah, it like almost everything, it comes down to money. Somebody tweeted to me and said, "Oh, these players they already don't like Vic Fangio." I'm like, it has nothing to do with Vic Fangio. It has to do with his contract, and that's true with everyone. And again, it's a tricky deal. And basically, whenever somebody says they want to be traded, it means they want more money. Whenever anyone says, most of the time, yeah, you could hate the coach. That's possible. That's not the case this here. But yeah, it's a tricky thing because of his age. And it's like we were just saying, like he declined. I thought he didn't have the year he had 2 years ago. He was still really good.
Yeah, but everyone did.
Everyone did. Didn't have a sack the last 5 games, I think. How much of that is him? Is that a sign that he's a declining player at 30? He'll be 30 in September.
And if you can't thrive in a Matt Patricia defense, I don't know how you're supposed to thrive in any defense.
Yeah, I mean, you would have thought Coach Patricia would be able to kind of turn things around for him, but
gets the most out of everyone.
Coach Matty didn't. Yeah, but that's, I think that ability for Coach Matty is why he's such a highly sought after coordinator candidate, as we know. That's for you. That's for Alex, but it's tricky because I don't know. I don't know if he's declined because he's an older player. I kind of doubt it.
I think he's still got some good years left.
I think he's still really good. I agree. And
I mean, because his best stretch of the year, he had 11 sacks in 10 games.
Yeah, he did. After it's starting with week 4.
Sure, but like I'll make the excuses for him. He had the thumb early on, and then the end of the season was just a train wreck.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you. I it just comes down to how much does Howie Roseman want to pay a guy who's an older player, and only Howie can answer that. But it's hard for me to imagine giving him $25 million for a couple of years.
Yeah, it's tricky. And then the Josh Sweat of it all is that you've got to worry about him. Like if you have to pay one of these guys, Josh Sweat's only 26.
Yeah, 3 years younger.
Then again, like,
but he's not as good. He's good.
He hasn't been as productive.
Yeah.
At moments he has been as good. I like halfway through this year when we were doing our like kind of superlatives, I said Josh Sweat was their best defensive player.
Yeah.
And I still believe that, like looking back at it.
Through the first half he was.
Yeah. Then it really fell off for him. And that makes you worry too, because he had the biggest workload of his career. Like, can he sustain that?
Yeah.
And then with Sweat too, as much as I hate doing this to him because he has been healthy in the league, then he hasn't been an issue. I think that's always in the back of your mind with him. Like, is he going to have a shorter career because of it?
Right. Right. You know what's crazy, and this is off topic, kind of. The Eagles had a better record than the Chiefs at week 17. Eagles were 11-5. Chiefs were 10-6. Anyway, I mean the whole edge rusher thing is, that's why a guy like Okwara could be valuable, because I mean we don't know what's going to happen with BG. I think he'll be here. He might even have a smaller role than last year if he is. We don't know how much Nolan Smith's going to contribute, how much he's going to play. There's snaps there. They could sure use somebody who can give you 20 good snaps a game. So Reddick and Sweat don't have to play as much.
Yeah, it's a shame they didn't get the Houston Texans version of Derek Barnett earlier in the year.
Yeah. How about that? And that tells you a lot. I mean, they figured out how to use him pretty quickly.
I think he was maybe a little, and this is unfair to him probably, I think he was a little undermotivated here in his role.
Possibly, but
he clearly wanted out. He wanted out before the season began.
True. But what does that say about the player? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But he did. I mean, he didn't make the, what do you have, 3 sacks for them?
Yeah. 3 more than he had here.
Yeah. I mean, he had more sacks than anybody on this team over the last month and a half, which is awful.
And I believe Hassan Reddick, by the way. I think he does want to be here.
Oh, I do too.
And if his best offer, like if the Eagles were willing to match the best offer he got on the open market, he would
totally
gladly
agree.
stay.
Like, he legitimately likes playing in his hometown.
Yeah, and that's not the case for every player.
Not the case for every player.
I actually recently heard Micah Parsons, and I apologize, I don't remember where the interview was from, talk about how he didn't want to play at home.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He was looking forward to playing elsewhere. And I get that. I think there's added pressure to that, especially as a young player. Now, Hassan Reddick had the benefit of being in the league for a while before coming home. Yeah,
true. I think Swift's a guy who didn't mind it either, but some guys are wired that way. Some guys aren't.
Yeah. And I think it helps both of those guys that they had been in the league for a while. They weren't rookies in their hometown.
Yeah.
I think that's really hard.
How do you think this gets resolved, Reddick?
It's tricky. I think it could go either way. I think he'll be here. And it's tricky because I understand that there should be a little bit of hesitation to pay him. And if it gets to this point, it means that there's a possibility he leaves.
Right.
But Howie's not in the business of giving away his best players.
Yeah, but I think the equation changes the older guy gets.
I get that, but this is a team that thinks they can compete for a Super Bowl next year.
Yeah.
And I know you don't throw all caution to the wind because of that, but it's going to look really bad if this team is a playoff team. They get a second round pick, and then Hassan Reddick goes on to be, third in defensive player of the year voting.
Yeah. I mean, the impressive thing about Reddick is, gosh, he's played under 5 coordinators the last 4 years and has 10 sacks each of those years, 10 or more, obviously. I'm with you. I think they'll find some common ground, but I wouldn't be shocked if they don't. Then it comes down to, what will he bring you? And I think we talked about this on the last pod. I think a 2 and something else.
I think you start off by asking for 2 2s, not the clothing, 2 2s, and maybe we're like a 2 and a 3. That's where you start. I mean, you could start with a 1, but no one's going to give you a 1, I don't think.
But you probably do start with a 1.
That always cracks me up when you hear about negotiations get leaked, and it's like, Team A asked for a first round pick, and everyone goes, "They're crazy. They're not getting a first round pick." It's like, yeah, that's how negotiations work. You don't get what you ask for, but you ask for it so you can meet somewhere in the middle.
I remember, I shouldn't even say this, but the Eagles had a GM. And he was a great guy, and he would talk to us about every contract every day during training camp. And that's back when rookie contracts weren't slotted. So rookie contract, there'd be holdouts every year. You'd have 3, 4, 5 guys holding out, veterans holding out. There was always 10 big contract deals going on every summer. And the Eagles GM would talk to us after training camp every day, just update us on things. And there was one negotiation, and he said, we've offered and he was specific, we've offered $6 million over 2 years, but that's not our final offer. And I'm like, why would he take it? You're not going to get a call tonight saying he's going to accept that if you're saying it's not your best offer. The next day, the GM says, I made a mistake yesterday in my interview. Somebody from Wharton School called me and said, never say it's not your best offer. because they won't take it.
Yeah.
So we've come a long way since then.
Do you like negotiating for things? Like, it doesn't really happen as much with like cars anymore, but like, are you the guy to go into a dealership and like walk out with a good deal?
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, like my last car, I was able to do that because I didn't have to have a car immediately. So I had the luxury of, my car's still running. It's not like
good leverage there.
Yeah, I had some leverage. And I remember one time I asked for, I was shopping for a car. It was a place in South Jersey, and they wouldn't give me the price I wanted. I walked out and they like start running after me. Like, no. I'm like, no, that's it. I'm done.
Yeah.
So I don't,
you got to be willing to walk away.
You got to be willing to walk away. And I ended up getting the car from another dealership, and they kept calling me, and I was like, you had your chance. You wouldn't give me that price. They're like, well, we'll give it to you now. I'm like, it's too late.
One of my funniest was when I was living in Houston, I had a car get flooded. And I bought it. I bought it.
Go to a Jets game by any chance?
I bought it used, but like I only had it a month, and it was like Houston gets these flash floods, and I drove into what I thought was a small puddle. It was a big puddle. Car gone. So, and I just bought it.
Oh, geez.
So I go back I get my insurance money, which was good. I got a good fair because I got the car for a really good deal. It was like a big sale that the dealership was having. And I go back to the dealership like a month later, and I was like, I want to do the same thing I just did. I want to like push restart. Basically the same car for the same price. I said, well, the deal's over. You can't do that. And I lost it on them. I was like, I'm buying 2 cars from you in a month. You can do it. And they did it.
Oh, they did?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the very first car I ever bought, I had a beater in college, but that was like a $300 car. But the guy wrote down the price on the back of his business card. I was like, that's a great deal. Let me sleep on it. I'll be in tomorrow. So I go back in the next day. He's not working there anymore.
Oh, no.
He's not working there anymore. And
he had done too many of those.
I think so. So I said, well, I want the car for this price. And they're like, we can't honor that. I'm like, it's written right here. This is the price. It's on his card. This is what he offered me. And he's like, all right, well, we'll do it. But we're not happy about it.
Oh, I don't care if you're happy about it.
So I come back in tomorrow. We should have all the paperwork ready. I go back in the next day, and that guy no longer worked there.
You're getting people fired left and right.
But I did end up getting the vehicle for the amount I was initially promised.
That's good.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. Let's move on from Reddick. I mean, I'm sure we'll kind of track this over the off season.
Yeah.
A lot of news to come on it. Some other news though. Another Eagles coach leaves, and this one was a little surprising. Roy Istvin, who had been the assistant offensive line coach here for the past 5 seasons, long history with Jeff Stoutland. He leaves, pretty lateral move from the outside looking in, takes the assistant offensive line coach in Cleveland.
Yeah. A little surprising just because he played for Stout at Southern Connecticut, was it? And then started his coaching career as a grad assistant under Stout at Southern Connecticut. And this is like late 80s.
Yeah.
So they've been, and they hadn't coached together between then and when he got here in 2019 under Doug, but they're very closely associated. And I think the success that Stout's had kind of makes this surprising, because why do you want to break up that tandem? And the players really they always spoke highly of Roy. So it's very interesting. Maybe Kellen Moore has a guy he wants in that spot as a young O-line coach. We think Stout, we're pretty sure Stout will be here because he put out a video saying how much he's looking forward to going to Brazil for that game.
He was just taking a vacation.
That was he said for the game. He's like, I'm excited.
He wants to watch the game while he's down there.
Excited to see all the Eagles fans in Brazil. I mean, I think that was
them. He wants to sit with them.
It was a carefully planned, carefully orchestrated way to. That happened when you were away, and I was like, "What? Why are they doing this?" And I was like, "Is this their way of announcing that Stout's going to be back?" And it was. So he's the only guy that we know is going to be back, and I just assumed his top guy would be back, but he's not. I guess he's the 7th coach. Should we run through the guys that have left?
Sure.
That we know have left, or the 8th coach we know of that we know are gone. Brian Johnson,
who, by the way, has the assistant head coach title.
He does.
In Washington. I found that interesting.
That is interesting.
And sometimes that means something. Sometimes it doesn't.
Right.
I remember when Deuce was the assistant head coach here, it really meant something. Like they let him speak in front of the whole team. I wonder if Brian Johnson will have that.
Yeah.
A little tougher for a a new head coach.
I would think so.
To give away some of that power.
Yeah.
Heck of a staff he's putting together in Washington, though.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see how that goes for him. Matt Patricia, where's he? Which head coach job did he take?
Hasn't decided yet.
Hasn't. He's still sifting through offers. Sean Desai, any peeps there?
He had some interviews, but yeah. The 49ers job's open.
It is. That surprised you a little bit?
Yes and no. I mean, it clearly wasn't about the Super Bowl. I think those two guys were kind of bumping heads.
Seemed that way
throughout the year. And look, if you're Kyle Shanahan, like, you deserve to be able to get the coaches you want in there, but it's a bad look.
Yeah. I mean, people are trying to paint it as like you don't blitz on 3rd and 6. And that play was very costly, but I mean, they were the number 3 defense in the league.
Yeah, I don't think he got fired because of the Super Bowl.
It seemed like he's a very, very strong personality, and maybe they just didn't mesh, but he's a good coach. Alex Tanny went to the Colts passing game coordinator, a bunch of passing game coordinators on the Eagles 23 staff. Marcus Brady, Chargers passing game coordinator, right?
Under Harbs.
No, he's not Harbs. He's Jim Harbaugh.
I knew that would bother you.
Tracy Rocker went reunited with Denard Wilson
in Tennessee.
Denard's now the DC. DK McDonald, secondary coach, is now at Kansas, co-defensive coordinator
and cornerbacks coach.
And then Roy. So, there's still some guys we haven't heard anything about.
I think it's pretty safe to say DJ Elliott is gone. We already heard about who they're hiring there. Is it Bobby King?
Yeah, I mean so he just hasn't gone anywhere, there's some guys Vic Fangio could sit down with him and really like what he has to say, and we'll make you an assistant position or something, but it's a matter of, do you want a demotion? Do you want to go somewhere else? There's not a lot of jobs open anymore. I mean, most staffs are full. So, and then offensively, and I wonder if any of these guys will stay. Still Jason Michael, Aaron Moorhead, and Jamel Singleton still.
And some of those guys have intrigue with them because Singleton has the assistant head coach title here. So that means something to Nick Sirianni, but that'll tell you a lot. And really him and Jason Michael, because Jason Michael came with Nick from Indianapolis. It was a lateral move for him at the time, from Frank Reich's staff to Nick's staff, which always makes me laugh about Nick getting mad that his assistants, when they leave, take guys because he took Patullo and Jason Michael.
But I don't think he has to worry about that this year.
Yeah, well, maybe.
But I think a guy like Jamel Singleton, I mean, Kelmore might come in. I think he's a good coach. He's certainly had success with multiple people. So, we'll see. We'll certainly keep you up to date, but a lot of turnover on that staff, especially on the defensive side so far.
Yeah. All right, let's take a break. We have some other stuff on the other side.
You deserve a car that thrills you, a car that puts goosebumps on your goosebumps. At Nissan, we got everything from turbocharged SUVs to 100% electric vehicles that'll make your heart beat faster. Experience the thrill for yourself and shop your local Nissan store and nissanusa.com today.
Celebrity cook Steve Martorano brings his Italian-American cooking back home to Philly. Enjoy Martorano's Prime at Rivers Casino and Steve's famous meatballs with Sunday gravy, prime steaks, and more. Make reservations at Martorano's Prime on Open Table. Hey, Rube, so we're going to talk about Jason Kelce and Travis Kelce from the latest New Heights podcast. There was a lot of stuff that I thought was really fascinating from that episode. But before we do that, we have to at least mention what happened in Kansas City. It was awful, and it just sucks. And before the show, we're talking about, like, what do we do? Do we talk about it? We know people aren't coming to us to hear it. We're an escape, and we appreciate that. And that's what we're going to be like. We're going to talk football, but man, it just sucks. And like, we know people who were there, and you're scared and you're worried. And then to hear the extent of it is just awful.
Yeah, it's awful. And I don't have any great insight on it. It's just, it makes me sick. It's such a joyous time, and it was good to see some of the people who just were heroes helping apprehend the alleged shooters. And Some of the players who were comforting kids who were there. A lot of the victims were kids, which just can't even, wrap your hands around that. But yeah, it's just a horrible thing, and just hope everyone who got hurt can heal up and get better.
Yeah, I caught myself yesterday like starting to get a little numb to it because this feels like it happens way too often.
Yeah.
And I had to like snap myself out of it and be like, no, like, don't be numb to it. This sucks. This can't happen. Something's got to change. So.
Yeah.
All right. No easy transition here, but the latest New Heights podcast, we got to hear Jason Kelce talk with Travis, and him being a big brother. That there were some interesting parts of the pod. That was one of them. Jason kind of hold Travis accountable for the Andy Reid bump, which is a tricky thing to do, but I thought he really handled it well. He made sure that people understand that's not acceptable, but you also have to understand the relationship these two guys have.
Yeah, Kelce's brilliant. I mean, it's easy to think of him as just like this, big drunken,
Sometimes he is.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah. But he's a brilliant guy, and his ability to articulate why Travis went over the line, but also how close Travis and Andy are. And, he started out saying, Travis, that can't happen. You went over the line. He's like, yeah, I never should have pushed him. He goes, no, you were over the line before you pushed.
Yeah.
You were over the line just yelling at him. He's like, yeah, I know. But then, he got Travis to talk about just how much he loves Andy, how he can't imagine ever playing for another coach, how if Andy hangs him up, he's going to hang him up. And Jason's like, he's not hanging him up. He's like, yeah, I know. Yeah. So it was really, really, I thought that was the highlight of the podcast, was that back and forth, and good for Jason for holding him accountable. And
I was curious to see what they'd say, because in the wake of the win, like Andy tried to diffuse it as much as possible. Travis tried to diffuse it, but it's a lot tougher to do on a podcast when you're talking to your brother. Like, there's no BS there.
Yeah.
You have to kind of really say what happened. I thought it was a good back and forth.
Yeah. And I think that's what
Not that we need to plug their podcast. They're doing fine.
Yeah. We'll never be the number one football podcast ever.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
I remember when that podcast came out, we looked at like the podcast rankings. Like, we're doing pretty good for a team specific podcast.
Right.
You look at the top, and it was New Heights and Greenlight. Chris Long is like, if these former Eagles current Eagles and former Eagles can stop bumping us down, really appreciate it.
Yeah, I remember after the first one, they were ahead of us, and I was like, Jason, what are you doing to me here? Yeah. He's like, he had no idea. He had no idea it was that popular, but
I think he knows now.
I think he knows now. But I think what makes that podcast so special is just how honest they are with each other, and how open, and they bring up stuff that you're like, are they really going to bring that up? And they do.
You have to.
Yeah.
You lose all credibility.
Yeah.
As players, if you're in that position and you don't.
And they are funny as hell together. I mean, it's and insightful. It's a great combination of funny and insightful, and the back and forth between them is amazing. Yeah.
The other really notable thing from the podcast is that Jason mentioned that before overtime, when you're realizing that, there's going to be these new overtime rules, he was texting Nick Sirianni because they've gone through this.
Yeah.
Which doesn't surprise you, knowing Nick. He's like, I know that we can kind of quibble with some of his in-game decisions, but like during the week, he is on that stuff, and he'll make everyone kind of recite, hey, if we're in this situation, what happens? So it's not surprising to know that the Eagles had a plan if they ever got in this situation.
They have a meeting every week where he shows situational stuff from college games, from other NFL games. What would we do here? How do we handle it? That's valuable stuff. But I thought that was really interesting that in that situation, he's texting Nick. Would he be doing that if he wasn't coming back? Maybe, probably.
Yeah, I wouldn't read too much into that part of it.
It was really interesting, though.
Yeah, because like you remember, like he was on the team all year, and if Nick was bringing this up, like and I'm sure there were a bunch of people texting Nick, like maybe not his assistants that all got fired, but
but it does tell you, how close Kelce and Nick are. I think they kind of the one thing I liked was the back and forth talking about the party the Super Bowl party after the game,
Mhm.
late Sunday, when Travis was like, you have this dichotomy here, and like all the videos went viral. He's like, and Kelsey's like, yeah, there's a dichotomy. There's like these two people in love dancing and
Yeah, a
smiling.
made-for-TV movie.
Yeah, and then here's this Neanderthal meeting himself with a mask on, the what's the luchador? I don't know, the Mexican wrestling thing mask, standing on a table with his shirt off dancing. He's like this Neanderthal. I've watched that video of Jason walking to the shrubbery, probably conservatively 1,000 times, because like Travis and Taylor Swift are walking here, and he's behind them, a few steps behind him, and they keep walking straight. He just walks right into the like this fern, this giant fern.
I think he had a good week in Vegas.
Yeah, I think he had fun.
His voice was shot. My voice is a little shot because I've been under the weather. His voice sounded a lot worse than this.
He is like, just like, think this is a 6th round pick, offensive lineman, who's now like, I mean, they showed like a photo of Taylor Swift introducing Kelsey's dad to Paul McCartney at the game. Like, I mean, it's just,
my favorite memes from the Super Bowl have been him meeting Ice Spice. Those are good.
Yeah. But the thing about Kelsey is, I mean, it's all so genuine. This is really who he is, and he just likes having fun. He reminds me of like John Belushi or something, just this pure love for everything in life. And if I feel like doing something, I'm gonna do it. And yeah, he's something else. He's a good player too.
Yeah, I think he's been pretty good. That's all I have on Kelsey. Anything else there?
No, I would. I guess if you watch their pod, it doesn't hurt our rating. So yeah, go watch their last pod. I think it was their best episode. I haven't watched all of them, but try to watch some of each of them, and it's really, really entertaining.
I agree.
Yeah.
I did a fun little project looking at some pending free agents with ties to Vic Fangio, and I also did one for Kellen Moore, but it's not out yet. I'm curious about some of these names because the last time they had a defensive coordinator with this much clout, it was Jim Schwartz.
Right.
And he was pretty involved in personnel decisions. And it wasn't like he brought in a ton of his former players, but there were a few. I'm kind of curious to see if Fangio gets a couple of his guys too.
Yeah, it's a good question. Who'd you come up with?
On this list, well, remember the Jim Schwartz guys, though, were like Stephen Tulloch, I believe Nigel, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So on this list, I have Andrew Van Ginkel, who played under Fangio last year in Miami. Interesting guy because apparently Van Ginkel was like prepared to leave and take an offer somewhere else, but he got a call from Fangio, who watched his tape and thought, no, I can use you. And then he kind of used him in a hybrid role as like sort of an off-ball backer, but also as an edge rusher at times, kind of in a way like how the Eagles started using Zach Cunningham early last season. So I think that he would make some sense.
He had 6 sacks last year.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't realize he was unrestricted, but yeah, it's an interesting name. 6'4", 240.
Yeah. Big guy.
Yeah. It's a good name.
A few others. I have a couple safeties on here. Deshaun Elliott, who's kind of been on our radar for a while because he's been an unrestricted free agent before, but played really well on a 1-year deal in Miami last year. Ended up playing quite a bit. And then another safety is PJ Locke, who played in Denver last season and ended up playing quite a bit because Kareem Jackson kept getting suspended. Kareem Jackson probably not likely because he'll play a game and then get suspended and then keep doing that. And he's older, but PJ Locke kind of came on. I thought he played well.
Well, that's a position they could certainly use some help.
And then Justin Simmons is not a free agent, but if you're Howie, I think you make that phone call.
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
He's entering the final year of his deal. About to get paid a ton. I don't know if Denver's in the position to keep him.
He's 30.
Yeah. The Eagles made a swing at Kevin Byard. Clearly didn't work out. I would imagine they're just going to release Byard. But safety is a really important position in this defense. Simmons is one of the best in the league. He has familiarity with Fangio. He knows how to play in this system. I think that's worth a phone call.
He's 30,
Mhm.
but had another really good year this past year.
The Pro Bowl season.
No signs of slowing down. What would you give up for him?
Yeah, it's a fair question. I mean, the 3.
Think that would get you Justin Simmons?
I don't know.
I would do that in a second for a 3. I don't think.
I would offer that.
Yeah, well, I think it would take.
Because it would take a contract too.
Yeah.
It's similar to Hassan Reddick.
I feel like the contract's the easy part with Justin Simmons. If I could, you got 2 2s. Justin Simmons
The
will help
clothing or the
Justin Simmons will help you more than one of those 2s, probably.
Yeah, I think so. And I understand, like, we're talking about bringing an older guy in, but still playing well.
Yeah.
We've
Good
talked
name.
about him for a few years here, so
Yeah.
it'd be fun. Josie Jewell from Denver, linebacker, been good for a long time. Used to be the green dot in Fangio's system, so a little tricky there because if they're really relying on Nakobe Dean, but I don't know if you can really rely on Nakobe Dean. And if you're Vic Fangio, you might want your guy to kind of be the voice on the field.
Yeah, that's an interesting point because Vic Fangio doesn't know Nakobe Dean. He doesn't. I mean, I think Nakobe's very smart, very sharp. I think you have a conversation with him, you'd be impressed by his football knowledge, but he didn't draft him. He wasn't here. So, and he didn't play last year. Barely played. He's barely played at all. He's an interesting guy. I'm really curious whether he'll give this team anything this year. But
I don't know. It's a tricky thing because we know they don't want to sink resources into linebacker, but I don't know how you go into year 3 of his career without really seeing him play at a high level, thinking that he's going to be the guy.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, Josie Jewell, interesting name.
Yeah, and then my last one was Malik Reed, an outside linebacker. He's actually available now, I believe. So that he's not a pending free agent. He is a free agent. He's not a big name, but they're already bringing in these other edge rushers to compete. Why not bring in a guy who has some familiarity?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the other thing about having those kind of guys is, you're trying to teach your defense to 53 or whatever, 45 guys.
90.
Well, the offensive guys aren't.
Oh, okay.
Learning defense. That's why I said 45. I took that 90.
I got you.
I probably should have subtracted the specialist. But anyway, having those veterans that know that's really valuable to have so that, guys can go into meetings and say, hey, what's he mean by this? What's he looking for here? And you have Josie Jewell there to explain it. That's valuable.
Yeah. And I'd imagine we'll find someone with some background with Fangio here. How much power do you, this is kind of on the same topic. How much power do you think Fangio will have when it comes to not just potentially bringing in some of his guys, but even in the draft, in free agency in general?
Well, we're seeing it with the coaching staff.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'll be
Christian Parker, by the way.
Yeah.
The new DB's coach, PJ Locke loves him. Has gone out of his way to talk about how much he's meant to his career. So
interesting.
That's another connection.
Yeah. I think you don't bring in Vic Fangio if you're not giving him a lot of leeway.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think he would take the job unless he's getting that. I think Jim Schwartz had a lot. I think it'll be similar.
I do too.
And I think it should be.
Yeah, you kind of make him the head coach of the defense.
Yeah, you don't want a defensive coordinator with a bunch of guys that he doesn't really want. So I think guys like Matt Patricia and Vic Fangio, that level of D coordinator, you give them that kind of autonomy.
Mm-hmm.
Look, this is your room.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I still can't believe.
And to maximize Fangio, I think you have to do that. Because otherwise, why is he here?
I wonder when Washington will make, not Washington. Sean Desai doesn't have a job. I'd love to ask him what it was like going up there and doing a press conference when you'd already been demoted.
I still can't believe that
and
happened.
Pretending you were the defensive coordinator. Think that's ever happened anywhere before? Probably not, right?
I don't know. Such a weird season. That's probably the weirdest thing to happen.
We could do it. That would be a pretty good list, though.
The weirdest things that happened in
happened.
2023.
Yeah.
That has to be up there. You had a guy playing make-believe
really
in front of cameras.
Yeah. There was a few.
Yeah, there were a few, but that's up there. Want to do some stay or go?
Yeah, let's do that.
Let's start with tight end today. I think we knocked out the other skill positions, but tight end still on the board here. Some decisions to be made. We know Dallas Goedert will be back. He's under contract. Kind of a disappointing year, but we know he'll be back. After him, I think there are some real questions.
Yeah, I think, and Kellen Moore likes to play 12.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he'll play 12 more than they have.
Might get Damo out of retirement.
I don't know if you want to play. I mean, you need a second. Like, you don't have to have a guy who catches 50 balls to be that second tight end, but you need a guy who can function at a higher level. And nothing against Jack Stoll and Grant Calcaterra, because they've both done well with. I mean, Stoll was undrafted, Calcaterra was a 6, but I just don't think they're good enough. And
yeah, I get that, but I don't know if you're replacing both of them.
Oh, I don't either. But I think Stoll needs to be your 3, and I think your 2 needs to be a guy who, look, Dallas Goedert's 29.
Oh, you had Stoll going.
I'd Stoll going and
Calcaterra going.
Well, I think I meant Stoll staying, but I could have been. No, I think that was the day I walked into a shrubbery.
Maybe.
But basically, I think you need to do better. And I think if either of them is going to stay, it's going to be Stoll.
I think so too. But then again, like Calcaterra is under contract, whereas Stoll, he's restricted. I don't think they're going to tender him.
Yeah.
Maybe. But like they'll probably just come up with like they did with Boston Scott last year and just like figure out a contract with him.
Yeah.
But if they add one in free agency or they draft someone, I think he could be bumped down to 3rd.
Yeah, and
that'd still be a specialist.
I think he better be 3rd because I don't think he's good enough to be 2nd. And it's not a knock on him. I just don't.
2 years in a row he's been 2nd.
I know, and I don't think he's good enough.
Yeah, but I think it tells you how they view him. I think the way the Eagles view Jack Stoll is very different than the way the rest of us do.
I think that's true. And I mean, the guy's played 1,000 snaps over the last couple, or like 800 snaps. So that was my thinking why I think I meant to write that he was going to stay, because he's played so much. I think a little less this year than last year. But I do think he needs to be 3. And I think, and again, this goes back to what we were saying before. Was Dallas Goedert's decline related to the general malaise around the team? Or, I mean, he's 29 now. I don't know. He's played a lot of football.
Talk about weird things in the season.
He's had a lot of injuries.
That was like that was all year.
Yeah.
Like the inefficiency in the usage of Dallas Goedert.
Yeah.
That's really bizarre because you look back at training camp, the 2 guys who, I mean, normally training camp's a pretty good indicator of the way like target share is going to be dispersed. And the 2 guys who got the ball the most in training camp were AJ Brown, and that certainly showed in the season. And Dallas Goedert was right there with him. We thought Dallas was primed for a huge season, and it didn't play out that way.
Yeah. Yeah, we did. I did. But I think, as you pointed out, I mean, he's at the age now. I mean, they traded Ertz when he was 30. Goddard's 29.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, they need him to get back to where he was the last 4 years.
I agree. And then, of course, Noah Tangiai, Noah Togoa. We both had him staying, getting mega extension.
Your number was higher than mine.
I had 120 mil.
Yeah, I had 112.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, I had more guaranteed money.
He'll probably be around in the practice squad, I would imagine.
I would think so.
Yeah. Do you think he knows that he's a favorite on this podcast? Someone has surely told him.
Yeah, I think it's very likely.
And he's probably like, if those guys could pronounce my name correctly, I'd appreciate it more.
He's a very quiet guy. He doesn't strike me as a podcast listener. Maybe I'm
sure someone else has heard it, though.
I don't know if enough people listen to.
I think a lot of people listen.
Yeah, I guess they do. Yeah, I'm going to guess no. I'm going to guess he doesn't know.
Really?
Yeah.
We'll ask him.
Jason Michael listens to the pod, though.
Does he?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Does he really?
He does. Yeah, he's made some comments to me, good pod the other day. So maybe he's told Noah, but I hope he hasn't.
Jason, if you're listening to this, can you ask Noah if he knows?
Does he Noah?
Okay, that's much worse than getting his last name wrong. How about offensive line? We'll kind of go through it here a little bit. Want to start with the interior guys?
Sure.
I think there obviously are a few that are notable. Kelsey's the big one, and we don't know what's going to happen. You and I both have him going. I think last year, this time I had him staying and you had him going. It's tricky. I'm not in his brain. I don't know.
Yeah. But I do think that it's not a slam dunk. He's going to retire. I think there's a chance he comes back.
I do too. And I do you think the longer this goes, more chance he stays?
No.
At least leaves the door open.
Yeah.
I still think he's probably going to retire.
I do too.
You heard Jordan Mailata on the Takeoff with John Clark podcast.
Yeah. But he was also just
he said it kind of jokingly, but he probably does have a sense, right?
I don't know how to take that. I think
if you didn't hear it, he said like he thinks he's retiring because Jason's got his shirt off and he's living life.
He's in the casinos, but it didn't really. Yeah, it was just Jordan, I think, trying to be clever. But I mean, all I know is what he's always told me, that he wants to, every year he wants to wait long enough to take the emotion out of it.
Which is wise.
Very much.
Which is why it surprised me so much to hear the report that he had told teammates after the playoff game.
But it could have been, I mean, he could have just said to a couple of guys, man, I think this might be it. Something like that. And then it just kind of
snowballed a little bit.
Yeah.
I thought he had more there. And then he went to take a drink. I was waiting for you to say something else, and then I saw the cup come up. Sua Opeta is probably the other guy on the interior line that has the most intrigue. And we disagreed on this one. You had him going, I had him staying. I think this really could go either way, and it's kind of like Jack Driscoll when we get the offensive tackle.
Right.
I think he could be back. There's a chance he could get offers elsewhere, and he takes one.
Yeah, and Stoutland's guys, I think, have a lot of value. I think around the league, I think Sue is the kind of guy that other teams might be willing to pay a little more than the Eagles. So that's the only reason I have him.
Yeah, he's like Nate Herbig almost kind of reminds me of that. He went somewhere else, got some money, became a starter.
Yeah, even guys like, I mean, Coyote. Sorry.
You kind of combined his first and last name.
I did. It was bad. I'm sorry. I'm doing really bad with names today. But like he started some games.
Coyote Awashika, yeah.
So I think there's some value in guys that learned under Stout. I think teams like that.
Yeah, and it probably hurts the Eagles a little bit.
Yeah,
because they even Brett Toth has gone elsewhere and played a little bit.
I mean, Isaac Seumalo had a really good year for the Steelers.
Yeah, he's kind of in a different category.
He was a starter here.
Yeah. Third round pick.
Yeah.
These other guys like, Herbie and Coyote undrafted, Sua undrafted,
right.
Toth undrafted.
Right.
He makes players out of these guys.
He does.
Anyone else on the interior list that kind of stands out?
I don't think so.
Yeah, we know that Cam Jurgens and Tyler Steen will be back. Their roles are certainly undetermined going into this year, and a lot of it hinges on Kelsey. I think Landon Dickerson's worth bringing up. We know he'll be here, but we've talked so much about Devontae Smith being eligible for a contract. Landon Dickerson's eligible for a contract, and you have less time to do it because he doesn't have that fifth-year option. He's entering a contract.
Right. Again, young guy, he's going to be here. Has Howie ever not been able to keep a young guy that he wanted to keep? I think Devontae and Landon Dickerson are probably bigger priorities than Reddick. Just because younger and
cornerstones. You expect them to be here for 7 years.
Yeah. So those are the priorities, and you'd love to have Reddick back, but you have to have Dickerson and Devontae back.
Dickerson played well this year.
He did.
And I finally got to admit that he played better this year than he did last year.
Oh, really?
Which is something for him.
How did you get him to say that? Was that like locker cleanout day?
It was before then. I think it was after he made the Pro Bowl.
Okay.
And I was like, well, I know you're but you played better this year than last year. I wanted that basically said, well, you really stunk last year, right? And that was a way to get him to say, I think I improved.
Okay. Interesting. That's good psychology because he's a guy that refuses to give himself any credit at all.
It's hilarious.
Landon, you're in the Hall of Fame. I don't know who the hell would vote for me. I don't know what they were thinking. Did they watch me? Yeah. Did they ever watch an Eagles game? I suck.
Yeah, he thinks he sucks.
I mean, his speech when he goes in the Hall of Fame, obviously that's a big leap, but he's on the right track. A couple Pro Bowls. His speech will be, look, I don't belong here. I suck. I'm leaving. He just walks off the stage.
I kind of see that.
Yeah.
All right, that's all on interior. How about the tackles? I think Jack Driscoll is the one with the most intrigue here. I don't know. I had him going kind of for the same reasons we talked about. So I think he could get an offer elsewhere.
Yeah.
And the Eagles just don't want to match.
Very possible. I think I had him staying.
Mm-hmm. We were flip-flopped on Sua and him, and I think it could go either way.
Yeah.
I think Driscoll's more valuable.
Yeah, I mean, he can, and I know fans are really down on him. He had a couple bad games, but he's versatile. For the most part, he's been solid when he has had to play. And I think he's got the right mentality for it. I think Stewart does too, to just always be ready. And they're not.
I think when people are down on him, they're not watching offensive line play around the league. We get so spoiled here.
Yeah. Yeah, you're
right.
right.
Have this narrow focus on this great offensive line. And yeah, he's not going to be Lane Johnson.
Yeah.
But like they also sometimes they'll put him out there and they'll still operate the offense like it's Lane out there. You're like, it's not Lane out there.
Right.
You got to help him.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think he's a pretty solid guy. I think they value him. Now, a lot of this, look, you have a new OC. So, but I mean, I think if Stout wants Jack Driscoll or Sua here, they'll be here.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else on the tackle list that stands out?
I mean,
we've obviously Lane and Mailata will be back, the starters.
Fred Johnson.
He's under contract.
Yeah.
We didn't get to see him this year because Jordan stayed healthy.
Well, I saw him singing in the locker room every day. He's got a nice voice.
He leads the team in jokes per snap.
Oh, yeah. No, he doesn't stop.
He's hilarious. It was funny, during the bad stretch of the season, I had another reporter go, locker room still feels light. And I was like, it's just Fred. It's just Fred over there having fun. I don't know if it's the locker room. It's just he's a fun guy, and he gets that one side of the room going.
Yeah. Yeah, he's entertaining. Good guy. He's
Big
huge.
Fred. The rest of the guys,
Would you go with Fred? Did you have him staying?
Yeah. He's under contract at a reasonable salary.
He was on a 53 all year.
He was a backup left tackle.
Yeah.
Now I wonder if he could be a backup swing tackle, which is the Eagles kind of had a weird setup.
Yeah.
Each of the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Typically you have a backup swing tackle who can play either side. They had a designated backup right tackle, designated backup left tackle, and then last year was even weirder. They had a backup right tackle, right guard, backup left tackle, left guard with Dillard on the left side and Driscoll on the right side, which is very strange.
That was odd. You think it would be easier to stay in the same position on the other side than stay in the same side at a different position.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
But I like their willingness to try stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think that's all for the offensive line. Want to go through specialists real quick?
Yeah,
we have a few minutes. And there's only 3 of them. So Jake Elliott, under contract. He'll obviously be here. Time for an extension.
Yeah.
He's one of those other guys who's you got to pay him.
He's up after next year?
Yeah, under contract year.
Yeah. Yeah, he's so good. We don't talk about him enough. 7 for 8 from 50 and out. Do you know that league-wide kickers made 68% of their 55-yarders this year?
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
It's a different game.
Yeah.
Than it was.
Somebody asked me why kickers never miss and why their range is so high now. After the Super Bowl, there were 3 55-yard kicks, and they're all just right down the middle. Would have been good from 60. And I don't know the answer. I mean, obviously training has evolved.
It's just so highly specialized now.
Yeah, but
teams have specific kicking coaches, and
but they always have.
Have they?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, but maybe not. But it's interesting. The numbers are crazy.
Yeah, and he's great, and he's so clutch too. The numbers don't even show how clutch he is.
94% this year, franchise record, and over the last 3 years, he had that bad year in 20, right? Mm-hmm. Which was weird, but that was
no fans in the stands.
Yeah,
the Eagles really dealt with COVID worse than any other team in the league.
Our cardboard cutouts were in the stands.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
They're still around the office somewhere, aren't they?
No, they were. I don't know.
I want to keep tabs on that. I don't want that in the wrong hands.
I have a photo. I'm gonna see if I can find this real quick. But
I know my friends wanted to get their hands on that cardboard cutout, and I was like, no way.
If I can find this photo. I can't find it. I'll find it for next week. But
good tease.
Yeah, I'm not gonna go beyond that. But anyway, Elliott, I think he's fourth most accurate over the last 3 years, which is, I think he's 92%.
Would have been a Pro Bowler if the guy in Dallas had missed a kick.
Yeah. But he missed two. Yeah, he missed 2 kicks, 37 against the Jets, I think, and a 55-yarder. But I mean, some of the kicks he made in bad conditions, that's the thing he doesn't get the credit for, is a lot of the guys who make 95% of their kicks, they're kicking in domes, they're kicking in the South where it's always warm and nice. He's kicking. How many kickers in the Northeast in outdoor stadiums are making
that 59-yarder against the Bills?
Yeah,
might be the best kick I've ever seen.
And that's coming from a kicking aficionado.
I mean,
Justin Tucker hears that, he's going to be mad at you.
I think Justin Tucker is in agreement with that. There was some talk around the league about that might be the highest degree difficulty kick ever.
Yeah, I believe that.
It was insane that he made that.
It was. So yeah, I think it's a priority.
And then the other two specialists are both free agents.
Yeah,
Braden Mann, the punter, and Rick Lovato, the long snapper. You're not going to have to break the bank for these guys, and I think you'd want to keep the operation the same.
I would think so. Lovato's been here since middle of 16. Braden Mann was impressive. He was really impressive. He broke franchise records.
I'm glad they gave him a chance to get going, because they could have pulled the trigger a little too early to get rid of him.
You're right.
Yeah,
you're right. That's an underrated move by Howie, not because he wasn't very good his first couple games. I think his first 2 games ended up breaking Cam Johnston's records for highest net average and highest gross average in a season. He was top 5 in both in the league, again, in bad conditions in the Northeast outdoors. I was really impressed with Braden Mann. I mean, it's not as much of a priority as Devontae, but I'd like to bring him back.
Yeah, I would think so. And then it's funny, I looked up long snapper salaries, and the difference between the top guy and like the 20th guy is minuscule in terms of like NFL salaries.
Right.
So I would think if they want to bring Rick Lovato back, they will.
Yeah. He's got he's played the 3rd most games in Eagles history without a start.
Okay.
Behind Dornbos and David Akers.
Makes sense.
I wonder what position player has played the most games
without a start.
I
have a feeling you're going to have the answer to that next week.
I will.
Another tease. We have a photo and the answer to that question. I'm going to hold you to it.
It's a great photo.
Okay. Yeah. That's all I have.
Okay.
Good.
By the way, I want to, I just want to, no, go ahead. We've gone on long enough. That's it. No, I'm not even teasing it. I'm just going to shut up.
Music to my ears. If you enjoy the Eagle Eye podcast, please rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, please click that like button, subscribe there as well. We'll be back with you next week. Plenty to talk about as the off season continues. For Rube, I'm Dave. This has been Eagle Eye presented by Nissan.